Just a question I have to ponder. Is there law in Western Australia? People would say, of course there's law in Western Australia. We've got sort of getting pretty close to Big Brother watching us everywhere. Whether there's cameras on street lights or there's cameras that are finding you on the road, or there's the people that are watching on the internet, or all the rest of it in the fashion of all the places, we have to be very careful that we are following the law. Even it's not a case of if there's a cop looking at us. No, we've got to be very careful all the time. There's a lot of laws in Western Australia, and more showing up every day. But here's the thing. We, the civilians, it's really not hard to be in the wrong place in that situation. We have become more and more compliant because you just don't know who's watching, where's watching, where you're going to get caught out. So just watch the law, read the law to try and make sure you don't make any mistakes. And yet our government has just broken the law in full, with no hiding it whatsoever. This is what's actually happened. Now, people might see that as me being exaggerating or trying to create trouble with saying that. No, this really happened. There's no grey areas about it. Now, it happened in a simple process of there's a fundamental set of laws that our government runs with. One of them, and a very big one of the fundamentals, is called a separation of powers. What that is, it keeps the legislative and executive and judiciary parts of our government, three separate parts of our government, to where not one of them can do multiple tasks. They have to do their tasks individually. This is so no part of government gets too powerful where it can make its own decisions. That's a fundamental law worked out by democracies and over civilization. It's the fundamental thing. If you don't do that, it's going to turn to mud. That's why that law's there. And how do we keep that in place? Well, we keep that in place by all the parliamentarians that make the decisions. So the elected side of our government, there's obviously the unelected side of our government, which is controlled to the largest degree by our elected side of our government. They have an oath that says they will stand by the fundamentals of and enforce or work by the fundamental laws of our government, and keep everyone without prejudice, treat everyone without prejudice, and there's a whole spiel that goes on about that, which is what their oath is. What's actually happened, and this is, I don't know how many times it's happened, I don't know where else it's happened, but I do know it's happened in our firearms legislation, what we're dealing with now. What happened there? And from what I understand, there was lots of sleight of hand. There was lots of convincing parliamentarians to do things. There was lots of, we'll sort it out later. We'll just slip it through now and we'll get it done later. And there's a great big story that goes with it. But the fundamentals of what happened is our parliament handed over the writing of the regulations to the regulators. So in other words, they gave the powers of the executive branch or the legislative branch to the executive branch. So they broke that fundamental law. The type of thing that if we did it, we'd probably all be in jail. If we made that fundamental mistake, that's big time break in the law, we'd be in jail or have lost our house or have lost all, we'd be in a lot of trouble. The government has done that, and there is no consequence at this stage to that. They've just done that. Parliamentarians voted on that. They broke their oath. Another thing that if we did, we'd be in a lot of trouble. As citizens, we'd be in a lot of trouble. That's a big thing, what they did. That's the fundamentals of breaking a basic law. That's what's actually just happened. They handed it over. We have that mess because of that. Now, there were lots of other things going on. There's lots of other, like I said, sleight of hand and convincing people to get that to happen and then to use that in a fashion where they have. But that's what's actually happened. Now, it's under that because of the mess, because the system doesn't work, because there's lots of completely innocent, completely law-abiding citizens that are being persecuted by this law, that are losing thousands and thousands of dollars in possessions with no recourse on that situation, situations that are diabolical in no other level. The word shambolic is used about the rules, but it's not just a shambles out here. You know, people are suffering massively. Now, you may say it's firearms. I don't care about firearms, so what's it really matter? Well, let's ignore firearms. This is a department that is supposed to enforce the regulations, and they want it to be easier, so they want to get rid of all the firearms. So they've then written rules to do that. And it's pretty thinly guised the way they've done this sort of process. But let's ignore all the stuff I can tell you about firearms and go with simply the regulators got to write the regulations and now are taking away the thing that they want removed. What if that's your four-wheel drive? What if that's your cat? What if that's your size of your house? What if that's your ability to travel overseas? What if that's all the things that you have in your life? That department decides, I don't really want to deal with that, and we'll just do this. And the fundamentals of how our government was set up are being ignored. So is there law in Western Australia? That's what it comes down to. Is there actually law? Or is it just one law for you peasants out there, and another law for us, the elite that do this? We don't need to worry about anything. We've got parliamentary privilege and we can do whatever we want and no one's holding us to account. I would say if our legal system only operates when people can pay them enough money to get our legal system to operate in the way of holding our government to the laws that it is sworn to uphold, what's the point? Do we have law? What are you asking for? If you don't do it through the nature of this system, the people can't do it because they're being oppressed to a certain level. The government doesn't care about it because they want the result that suits them. I think you've got a broken system. I dread to say out loud what comes just after that when you go another step too far. The minorities eventually turn into the majorities and then your system's broken. I would beg that our system, in whatever form it is, which includes all the people waking up to what this really is, but our system corrects this before it goes too far. The fundamentals of this stuff were written by a lot smarter people than you lot. They came from a lot more knowledge than the momentary thing that you're trying to fix. Let's go back, make sense of it, stop what's actually happening, turn it around. This story of, oh, it's just too hard, it will be just too hard. But listen, nothing's too hard when a government actually wants it to happen. When they've got something else that they prefer more and they don't really care about the law and they don't really care about the common man, they're just pretending to, this stuff happens. So how about we be honest about this, we actually get back to actually having law, and we do that because it is the right thing to do, not just because we know it's the right thing to, because we know how badly this will go if we don't stop it now. How about we be the adult in the room? And I ask that out of not just our parliamentarians to do that, but all citizens of Western Australia. And of course, this is not just a West Australian problem. I'm no doubt this has happened in other states, in other fashions, because our government is starting to get away with stuff, and the more they get away with, the more they want. The more you let them do it, the more they're going to do it. So that means also for the citizens, it's time to wake up. It's time to find a way to push this back, to hold account to our government so it doesn't get worse than this, because it is. It's getting worse. And where's that going? Think of ourselves as a lucky country. It's not looking that way. Anyway, guys, that's my one for this today. I hope we can wake up. I hope there's some honesty. I hope there's some decency. I hope there's law in this country. Thanks for checking in, guys. We'll catch you next time.